ask it, did you know, the answer is no. If you answer, could you know, then if we take it to the abstract, the answer is yes. Because if you got into the ADA and you read it in detail and you were a lawyer and you understood it and you understood the interpretation and you got out there and measured that particular dimension, then the answer to your question is yes. But in the real world, when you're concerned with completing a project, with the aesthetics of the project, with the project being done in a timely fashion, under pressure, knowing that you're not timely at that particular point, is it reasonable to assume that you would have known that? I don't think so.
No. And I'll tell you truthfully that when the staff told me that one of the problems was that you had to have wheelchair access to the playground, my thought was, that's ridiculous. But that's what they require.
And in fairness, Mayor, there is access. I mean, even if there were no mulch present at all, the well-designed traffic flow using the paved sidewalks that are out there would allow wheelchair access to the full range of the equipment that's there.
Yeah.
And there would be no need to move across the mulch area in order to gain that access. So in answer to your question, the access is adequately provided by the excellent design. I mean, it's just you look at it, you go out there and you say, this is a great design. And you ask yourself, what in the world would somebody come and pick on this for? Because all you can think about is your children or your grandchildren just having a good time out there.
Let me go back and ask details. How much money do we have in it in terms of our time, extra costs to our staff for monitoring everything?
We have estimated staff's cost as of December 22nd at about $36,000 and Barge Wagner's time at something like $13,000. Now that is as of December 22nd. We've had numerous discussions. We've had an additional walkthrough. I mean, we could update that, but at this point we're at about $50,000, I would say, through the 22nd in hard costs.
Our staff are paid anyway, but Barge Wagner is not, so they're going to charge us for it.
Steve Fritz with Barge Wagner is with us tonight. If he would like to make any comments about, I know there have been questions about the playground and whether it was ready and what could have been done. I'll just call on him just openly to make any comments he'd like to add.
Darrell, as he comes up, clarify what you just said. I'm unclear whether you're saying that those costs to town staff and the engineering firm are throughout the entire project or simply since October 18th?
Between October 12th and December 22nd. Okay. Those are estimates of staff time that has been required of the project based on hourly rates and overhead.
From the 12th of October.
Correct.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Steve Fritz. I'm a landscape architect with Barge Wagner. A couple of things. There's been a lot of discussion about the rules regarding the playground safety, and there's actually two different codes that are associated with that. One of them is ADA, and that primarily is handicapped accessibility. The other is there are a set of national safety standards that have to be followed with respect to the design of playgrounds. There's this thing called a certified playground safety inspector that is well schooled in those requirements. And TDEC paid for the playground. Their money the grant was for the construction of the playground. and their folks are certified playground safety inspectors. And so when they come out to do the inspection, that's where the details are really looked at from their perspective. And unless they signed off on the playground that those improvements are made, the town could be in jeopardy if they let people onto that playground prior to it being those safety issues being addressed, no matter how minuscule they may be. And Mayor, concur that some things seem to be a little frivolous in some ways, but the regulations are what they are. So, Darrell, was there anything else that you wanted me in particular to address?
Well, I think the question has come up about could we have opened the park with the playground unfinished?
You could have, but our recommendation would have been that a barrier or something be put around the playground such that it could not have been accessed until those safety improvements have been made. But even if that's done, you've basically created an attractive nuisance there that people could try to get under or through or around or whatever onto the playground to be able to use it. We even had an instance like that happened during construction where there were people out there, kids out there on the playground prior to construction being complete. So could it have been done? Certainly. It could have been fenced off and the rest of the playground been opened. I think there were a few other items like the entry feature hadn't been completed and some other things up until December. But to answer your question, yes, it could have been. But it creates some issues that would have to be dealt with.
But we would have still had some liability even with a barrier.
Well, I would think so. I mean, as I said, it creates an attractive nuisance that you have something there that's made for children to play on, and unless you really securely fenced it off to where people absolutely couldn't get to it and someone got in there and got hurt, then I'm not an attorney, but and wouldn't offer an opinion on what liability you would have, but I would not think that would be a good thing.
I'm curious, how did the costs, you're stating that there was $13,000 worth of additional costs to your company. How did they break out? How did we incur those?
Well, it was for primarily additional inspections. Our contract called for a single substantial completion inspection and a final inspection. It also called for progress meetings on a certain basis and there were more progress meetings, there were more inspections, there were, and then time that went beyond the substantial completion date. Our contract called for the construction term to be 180 days, and so any time that we spent after that, we're contractually due. And we sent the town, every time we've sent an invoice, exactly what it was for, what the time was for, who was involved, et cetera, and tried to do our best to limit the charges, but we spent quite a bit of time out there after the date of substantial completion was passed.
We do review those invoices. Their time is correct on it.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
In your opinion, when a contractor is building a TDEC paid-for playground, should there not be an awareness on the front end about what TDEC requires for that playground in terms of specificity for design elements and distances and all that stuff?
Well, certainly the subcontractor that the kids own, the manufacturer of the playground, absolutely should be aware of those regulations. The national safety regulations for playgrounds and the ADA regulations, absolutely, they should be aware of it. Now, would Christopoulos and Kennedy be aware of that? Probably not. But, they would be relying on their subcontractor to be able to make sure that it was installed per the plans. And the plans, of course, showed the 6-foot safety zone around the playground or more. They should, I would not have expected Christopoulos and Kennedy themselves to be familiar with those regulations.
Well, that gets to my next question: is did the plans show specific measurements to for the different play elements to the?
Yes, it showed the safety zone as per the requirements around the facility. Yes.
So they were not built in compliance with the contract documents. Is that?
Well, it gets a little complicated because the contract documents were based on one playground manufacturer's equipment, and they had a substitution with another playground manufacturer, and so it got a little complicated in terms of how all of that worked and fit together, because none of them, we base something on one manufacturer and then you substitute another one, then it begins to cause some issues with how the layout is and how close things are and all that sort of thing that had to be dealt with through the shop drawing review process and the design.
I understand the subcontractor had put this in, but who, in your opinion, is responsible for making sure this is accomplished per the guidelines and done on time per the contract specificity?
Well, ultimately, the town's contract is with Christopoulos and Kennedy. So in terms of it being built per the contract documents and codes, it would be ultimately the person you have the contract with, in my opinion.
Question for Mr. Hollow on that point. Your clients, in terms of following the subcontractor, was there any effort to make sure that this was in compliance with TDEC? Did you just simply trust them at their word, or was there some effort on this? Because obviously this seems to be a key point of contention.
All the approved documents, all the approved drawings were furnished to the subcontractor, and as well as the specifications. So they were well aware of everything that any other contractor or subcontractor looking at the plans and specifications, drawings, would have been aware of. So they had, and you know, it's not like you're asking somebody in Joe's welding shop to go out here and take some angle irons and make a swing. You're talking to a contractor whose specialty is making this kind of equipment, and you're furnishing them drawings prepared by architects. Well, don't we have a right to rely on the architects and engineers that are hired to direct the project? And so you provide them with what the architects and engineers have given you, and then they provide you with a product. Now, I think there's a reasonable basis there to rely on their expertise in providing the product, knowing that they're experienced as a vendor of that type of product in this area.
Therefore, the general contractor should have some recourse against the subcontractor or supplier who furnished the non-compliant.
Could have, yes.
Were your clients aware that TDEC had the final authorization on this playground?
No.
So you're disavowing any awareness at all that that was a requirement?
I'm not disavowing anything. I just don't have any information from my clients that they had any awareness that TDEC was the final
They are here.
authority.
Can we ask them that question?
Authority with regard to that.
I guess the question would be, was that stipulated in the contract?
Contract document does not contain a lot of the stuff we're talking about.
I'm Tim Bingham with Christopoulos and Kennedy. I was the project manager for this project. I remember discussions about TDEC. I know Sue was heavily involved with Sue Stoll was heavily involved with the playground area, and I remember discussions about that the funding was coming from TDEC. I would have to go back through my notes. I'm not prepared to talk specifically about it, but I do remember conversations about TDEC.
I guess just trying to stay on point, we had plans and specifications that we priced the job on, after which we signed the contract, went to work. In your plans and specifications, the obligation to the contractor was never conveyed of TDEC. The obligation of mulch being ADA compliant was never a part of our scope of work. What we're trying to boil this down to is the town of Farragut chose not to open the park to the public, which we feel was your subjective choice.